thought about traveling across the world to meet strangers from the internet? Well, I did, and it changed my life in ways that I could never imagine. Join me on a journey, Tasha's journey, to Johannesburg, South Africa, where I experienced many firsts, like taking a hot air balloon ride, going to a safari, doing a photo shoot that was giving main character vibes, and meeting people that inspired me to step out of my introverted comfort zone. But most importantly, towards the end of the trip, I met a person that changed the trajectory of my life. This is truly a story of self-discovery, adventure, and the magic of Mother Africa that will leave you inspired to break free from expectations and live your life to the fullest. Let's get into it. Who were these strangers that I was meeting from the internet? It's not as scary as it sounds. It's not no Dateline mystery going on. I actually paid a travel group to go to South Africa with. So the strangers were women that were like me, who had an interest in going to South Africa and having everything done for them. And Travel Noir is the company that I booked the trip through. At the time, they were exclusively doing trips for Black women and men to travel to all types of exotic locations. I got the idea to even look for a travel group from a friend of mine, Heather. She had went to a few places abroad with the travel group. Now at the time when she told me she was doing this, I'm like, girl, that's some white people stuff. Just being ignorant. That's what I literally said to her. Like, ain't no Black person about to be going, meeting no strangers. Fast forward 2 years after she went on her first trip, I was doing the same thing, but just with a group that I wanted to feel like accepted and not have to worry about, am I going to be the only Black person there, and what's it going to be like? Especially going to Africa, I knew no matter what country I went to in Africa first, it was going to be an emotional experience for me, and I wanted to experience that with other people that would probably have the same emotions that I had. And I was right. Travel Noir were the strangers I was meeting with. And prior to Travel Noir, I was in South Africa for 2 days by myself, and I actually was able to meet up with a driver that another friend connected me with. So those are the strangers that I was with. Why did I go to South Africa to meet up with strangers? Don't I have friends and family? Yes, I do have a lot of friends and family that love me. I'm very blessed. However, you can't travel with everyone that you love. And if you have ever traveled with certain people, y'all may or may not be friends after the trip. And also, people do not want to go to the places you want to go to. South Africa is not going on a 2-hour plane ride. It's expensive, and anything abroad is going to take time and money. And nobody in my friend group was interested in going to South Africa, not even a little bit. And when I had the first desire to go be in a relationship, it was like, it's so far off, it's so expensive, like that's something you'll never be able to do. We won't ever be able to do, you won't ever be able to do. That type of conversation with the relationships that I was in at the time when I actually did go to South Africa. And also on the friend thing, I mean, I've had friendships end over going to Miami. So it's like, okay, we can't make it to Miami, we ain't about to make it to South Africa. So that is why I decided to go with people, like-minded people, pay the money, have it ready for me, just show up, and people will be excited like me to be there, not feeling forced to be there because they're making a compromise. What about this life-changing experience that I had? Like, what is that all about? I would say first thing that I noticed right off the bat with me when I landed in Johannesburg, my introvert title, it kind of slid off me. I think I left that in the US. I still consider myself introverted to this day, but now I know it's because I wasn't really trying hard. I was using that title as an excuse to be socially lazy. Now, I know that's not everyone's story. I'm telling you that's my story. So it's not first nature to me to want to have small talk, or when I'm in a room to go up to people and initiate conversation. That's not me. But in South Africa, I was on it. Now, when I first landed, I had a driver. Fortunately for me, I had a friend who had went to South Africa, a friend of a friend. So let me rephrase that, because you're like, wait, I thought you said you didn't have friends that wanted to go. I met her through a friend of mine. We're friends now, but she had went to South Africa, and she was like, oh, I know a driver. Like, I know this person through somebody else. And she connected me with him. He picked me up from the airport. And that was my first introduction to Johannesburg. And USA Tasha would have been like, oh, I don't know what to say. I'm going to say hi or just try to be pleasant. I had a million questions. I had a ton of comments of what I experienced. I had took a 16-hour plane ride directly from Atlanta. I do stay in Metro from Metro Detroit. I went to Atlanta first, stayed there for a couple days with friends, and then I took the 16-hour plane ride, direct connect from Atlanta to Johannesburg, 16 hours. So once I got off that plane, I was refreshed. I slept 13 hours. Get you some melatonin when you take long flights, and I was ready to go. And I was just I could not believe it. I think a lot of it was adrenaline, where I didn't even have time to be in my own head. As soon as I seen him, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, it's chaotic in this airport. He works in the travel industry, so he was very welcoming, down to earth. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I need to eat. And he's like, you're not jet lagged? I'm like, no, let's go. Take me to some spots you go to. Like, I didn't want to necessarily just go to like tourist spots only. So immediately off the plane, I was ready to go and engage with people. Something that's just not in my DNA. I would need that social butterfly friend with me to start that conversation, and I kind of hide behind them. That was not the case. Then the 2 days we were together, I went to safari. He took me to a safari. I went to local spots, different bars and restaurants with him and his friends and girlfriend. And then it was time to meet up with the lovely ladies of Travel Noir. And even when I met up with them, I had been there for a couple of days, so I was a little relaxed, and so I was able to share tips with them, and I was just so ready to engage. And what I like about Travel Noir, when they set this up, they had introvert personality types in mind. Like, they made group discussions. It was people who worked in the travel group that came up to you, talked to you, try to, oh, this person's talking about this, maybe you can connect with them. So it wasn't so awkward. So I was like, who is this person? I'm out here talking to people without being nervous or shy or scared. So that was first thing that I noticed about me. Like, I realized that a lot of me hiding behind the introvert title was me acting out of fear. And I journaled this. Right before I left, my mom gifted me with a journal. And fast forward to today, I just finished the last pages of that journal. And in South Africa, I was able to like reflect on like, oh my God, like I'm talking to these people and like this is coming easy to me. And I had not had that experience prior to going to South Africa. So the social change in me, I saw immediately. The emotional side of visiting South Africa. During our trip, we spent time in Soweto and Mobanag, and we were welcome in a family home in Soweto. We had the best food, best breakfast, and then we were off to different landmarks throughout Joburg that was significant in apartheid. Now, I had heard the word apartheid prior to coming to South Africa, and I knew who Nelson Mandela was. Like, if I see a picture of a Nelson Mandela, I know who that is. But up until visiting South Africa, I really didn't understand the importance of him, right? And that's like shocking to say. That's like someone being from, the U.S. and not knowing the significance of Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, at a certain age. That's that type of comparison of like, how do you not know this historical figure? And I'm like, I knew who he was, but I didn't know what he stood for real. And going to different landmarks in like the Watchtower, for example, and being up and seeing like this is where armed guards would shoot people who were out after curfew. And mind you, these people are colonizers. They're from Europe, they're from Britain, they're from the Netherlands, they're Dutch. They came and took over the land, and this is what you're going to do now that we're here. We're going to segregate, and we're going to take the land we want, and you're going to be confined to these areas, like forced segregation. And it was very similar to the civil rights movement not civil rights movement, but just the segregation, the Jim Crow laws in the U.S. And I just didn't know this. So it was very emotional. A few of us were crying, like how we were just embarrassed that we just didn't know this. And we're grown women and just didn't know this history. And just the similarities, it started to see like this, like I can't think of the words right now, so I'm going to skip over it. But just like all of what people of African descent have gone through, we felt it. And then after that visit, we went to another person's home. Like, it was a welcoming. They welcomed us with a traditional dance, and we had like drinks out of, I don't know. I'm showing you all the pictures, but it was like traditional food and song and dance, and they were just like welcoming us back, welcome back home. No matter what country you're from, we know you are from Africa, so welcome home. So it felt sincere, and it was another emotional moment. And when I went to Johannesburg, it was an emotional experience for me. A lot of it had to do with, I never thought I would be able to come to Africa, even though I have no clue what part of Africa my ancestry comes from. It was just emotional to be there. And now thinking of the other places I went to in Africa, I finally made it to Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, and being at slave trades and seeing the beginning of how a lot of African people came to the Americas in itself. So just before even going to Ghana and all that stuff, it was just emotional for me. And I'm glad I went with Travel Noir. I'm glad I trusted my gut and did the research to go with a Black travel group, so we can have this moment together of knowing what each other feel, what we were feeling. Like, that doesn't, I'm not saying just because you're Black, we're going to all have the same emotions at all. But fortunately for us, we were all able to share, and we really felt connected at that point. So it's very emotional from that standpoint from the history aspect. We were having these fireside chats, and we was just like able to like share what our hopes and dreams were, because pretty much every woman in that group was like, I made it. Like, I never thought I was gonna be able to come to South Africa. Like, oh my God. And people in my life was telling me I was crazy. Same experience. Everybody was like, you crazy for going to South Africa to meet with strangers. It's not that serious. And it was like this feeling of everybody like, we can do anything. We done came here. We didn't know each other. We just had Facebook information and talked in Facebook groups for a minute or whatever before we met each other in South Africa. But we didn't know each other. From Detroit, from Dallas, from Chicago, from New York. We were from a little bit of everywhere throughout the U.S. And so we was just like, you can't tell us nothing type of thing. So we were all in the space of like, we are so powerful. What can we do after this experience? Like, I actually went in 2016. So I'm recapping now on this emotional moment in 2023, because this is actually the time that I went. 7 years ago today, I was in South Africa. September 2016 is when I went. And I decided to do this video because I'm seeing the memories pop up on my phone, and it was such a life-changing event for me. So even 7 years later, I'm able to reflect on this amazing emotional experience. And a lot of us still keep in touch to this day. We have group chats on IG just to see how everyone is doing, right? But when we were there, we really shared our hopes and dreams of what we wanted to do next and what it took for us to get there. Like, it took a lot to get there emotionally, and like feeling like I can do this. Going to Johannesburg 2016, I was the heaviest I ever been. I had gained 40 pounds during the grief period of my life. My grandma had died that year. And so I really wasn't that confident. Like, once I was getting the clothes to go to South Africa, I had to get new clothes. So I couldn't fit anything. I was like, oof, I just wasn't feeling as confident. But then once I got out of the physical appearance of like, okay, you have this extra weight, I'm like, girl, you about to go to South Africa. Like, get over it. And we had a photographer with us the whole time. And we each had our own photo shoots. And before I gained all this weight, I was excited to to do the photo shoot. But like once I was there, I was like, oh, I gotta do this photo shoot. Like, this is not how I normally look. And secondly, I don't know what to do on a photo shoot. I'm like, I watch America's Next Top Model, but I'm not, that's just never been my like thing, right? So I had my main character moment in this photo shoot. Now in my head, I thought I was giving Tyra Banks, but that's not what came across. But I was happy that I did it. And I had these photos with me forever from a great photographer. But at the time, I was like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. But you know, the women were we were hyping each other up during our individual photo shoots. The photographer was great and gave me some pointers and confidence. So that was another thing. It was like, I've never been a girly girl, and I've never been the person that's like, I want to take a million pictures. But let me tell you, that ain't the story. If you my friend, you probably gonna leave a comment like, girl, what? You ain't. I want to do photo shoots all the time. Nah, especially on vacation. So I was like, I did like taking pictures before that. Like, I always had like a digital camera, disposable camera, but like of people. I never really was trying to be like the main focus. Oh, but after Johannesburg, I'm like, hold up, let me get this weight up off of me, because I'm about to strike a pose. And I always have me a photo shoot everywhere I go. So thank you, Joburg, for unlocking that in me, because listen, these photo shoots I done had in Egypt and Santorini and all of that, that came from me being awkward and shy and not knowing what to do in Johannesburg. But after doing that, I got more confident in taking pictures. And the other physical thing, confidence that unlocked, I really believe, I'm trying to think, but I really believe that Johannesburg was the first place I actually went on a hike, like a for real hike. And whoa, it wasn't like excruciating, but it was hot. And we were all pushing each other to get through it. I was a fairly active person, but I had stopped working out because I didn't realize I was grieving. I was just eating. And I was glad I was able to do that. But the hike was amazing because we went horseback riding. We hiked to this river stream, and I was too scared to get in the water. Because I'm like, I don't know if it's what's going on. Like, I'm not about to just jump in no body of water. So I didn't do that. I was still a little bit nervous about certain things. But and we came back, we went to this cave, and the guy was saying that this is like the beginning of mankind. The cradle of humankind is in South Africa. I am just saying what the tour guide told me that stuck with me. If it's different, let me know in the comments. I've never really researched or validated it, but he really was going in depth about it. And I did do a quick Google search, and I do know there's a cradle of humankind in Joburg, a museum. But I also, when I was in Kenya, I've seen like in museums that they have the record of first like human life. I don't know, but the physical change with me, besides just the photo shoot and the hike, was like that confidence that I can do this. It wasn't just mentally doing stuff. It's like I can physically go on a hike. I had got on a horse since I was in high school. I was like, what? I can physically do this. And at the end of the hike, we went back to a person's house. Like, we were always in these authentic, beautiful homes wherever we went. And I met a woman that changed my life forever. She was like 23. I had just turned 30 a few months prior. And she was traveling by herself. And I traveled by myself to South Africa. I got on that plane. But I was meeting with the driver. I had that planned out. I was meeting with the travel group. Had that planned out. And she was like, no, I'm staying in the hostel. I'm like, what's a hostel? Girl, you out here for real by yourself? Like, oh my God, like I came by myself, but we all together. A lot of us was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you know, even Heather was with a travel group. And she was like, no, she really broke it down. Like, I'm staying in hotels, I'm just exploring South Africa. She had been in Cape Town, Durban. She was like, no, like, I'm backpacking. I'm like, backpacking? I seriously, y'all, had never heard of this term at the age of 30. And I just remember talking with her, and she was from DC, and she was like, I wanted to see the world, I'm gonna do it. Like, this is a thing a lot of people do. Like, a lot of like they take a career gap before starting their career, especially in Europe. That's the thing, they always take a quote unquote gap year before they start their career. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? So that is how I began Tasha's journey. That planted the seed in me to research solo travel. I never researched solo travel, not with a group, but just actually by myself, until I met that young lady in South Africa after doing an amazing hike and jumping on trampolines. And I was like, dang, I could really do something that's so different, so left field. And that is why Johannesburg has a special place in my heart, because it really did change the trajectory of my life, of knowing that I can do anything. I don't have to wait on people. I just have to step out on faith and do it. So my question to you is, what are you waiting for to change the trajectory of your life? Right? I had this deep desire to travel the world, but I thought it was like a pipe dream, like something I would never accomplish. But actually hitting that first life goal let me know I can do this. So what is that life goal you are trying to achieve? Let me know in the comments, and maybe we can motivate each other as we're dropping out what we want to do in the comments to hit our life goals. Until next time, bye. So learning about traditions, and that the boys get circumcised at 14, and that tribal dance that you saw in the beginning, hi! They do that at naming ceremonies, and then at 15 they go off into the wilderness for 5 years, no communication for the family, and they have to kill a lion to come back as a man. What?